Corner. Oh,
Yeah.
and we're live. Welcome. This is another episode of World Club of the Fortnight. I believe this is episode number 7, which means that we have some consistency going, which is awesome. Last week, if you didn't join us, you can go check it out. We did Liverpool, which was my club. This week, Doug had the choice of club. And Doug, why don't you tell us what club you picked?
So we are doing Minneapolis City SC, which you may not actually be able to tell from my jersey and my scarf if you haven't, if you're not familiar with the old logo of the club. This is the old logo up here. It was a very controversial logo because it's not a crest, but it's a panel from like an old school soccer ball. You know, that's the outline of it, and then it says NPLS, which is short for Minneapolis, and then City SC. And I suppose the SC is slightly controversial as well, but as we talked about on the old Free Culture Sports Show, I think a number of times, South Africa and Australia and plenty other places call it soccer, and it's actually comes from an English word. So we call it soccer here. That's basically what it boils down to.
So. And there are SCs other places for sporting.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. So I guess if I hadn't said it's a soccer club, then people may not have known. But it is a soccer club. And so I think last week, like you said, it's your club, your number one club, and we both have some secondary clubs that we kind of follow. NCFC, Louisville City would be two that we both sort of keep an eye on, I think. Certainly we both have Louisville City gear. I know that. But this is my, my top team. And it probably says a lot about us and, and like the way that we've lived our lives, that like my number one team has been, it was Malmo for a while. It was St. Pauli for a while. It was Manchester United for a while. It hasn't been Manchester United for a long time, but at this point. But this is the first time I've been in a city where there was really a club that was like I could get to games. And there was the Bohemians in Baltimore, but they played like way outside of the city. Of course, Minneapolis City didn't actually play in Minneapolis last year. They played in this town called Osseo because the stadium that they're going back to this year was under construction. Actually, I don't think it was the stadium itself that was under construction. I think it was stuff around the stadium, but they needed the stadium area for construction equipment during the summer when it was the off season for the Augsburg College. So they were the story that was told at the member meeting at the Minneapolis City member meeting a couple of weeks ago was that the school was given, Augsburg was given like $5 million for renovations, and Augsburg said, well, if you can match that, then you can have the field. And they were like, yeah, no, because the budget and Minneapolis City is a 501c3 for their charity work, and just like athletic clubs can be if they're not run as businesses. And their budget is about $90,000, or it was this past year. They're expecting it to be a little bit higher this year. Coming back to Minneapolis, they should have more ticket sales than being out in Osseo. But we also learned at the member meeting that they lost a very minimal amount of money in the scheme of things. And that loss really wasn't much of a loss once you consider that they had a lot of upfront costs that eventually that'll pay for itself, and they do cash accounting. And so there are some other accounting methods that would basically say that they didn't have a loss. But just because so many clubs in the U.S. lower divisions end up folding, and I mean, people talk about lower division soccer in the U.S. folding, but MLS teams have folded. So, I mean, it's been a while, I guess. But
I guess you could. It's not the MLS, but you could say the top divisions have.
Well, yeah, that's that. Yeah, the whole division, the whole old NASL went under, and then they brought it back. But just like, but it was like not the same thing, and people may not realize there was like a gap of like 20 years when the NASL didn't exist, and just knew everything to that. But anyway, I am going to try not to make this like a 4-hour show because
me personally, I can do about a 30-minute at top show. So let's speed it up if we can.
Yeah. So just some things that I want to mention that I want to say before like we lose people if we haven't already. That there's open tryouts March 27th if you're in the Minneapolis area and you want to try out for the club. It's 4th Division club. It's very competitive. They're champions of the NPSL North currently. So they want good players. And the NPLS is a national league. I guess you could call it National Premier Soccer League without it being literally a national league. The old league that they were in, if you can see on camera there, was called the Premier League of America. It wasn't the Premier League of America. It was like the Great Lakes region. But, names can be deceiving, but it is a national league. There's a podcast completely devoted to this club. It's called the People's Pitch Podcast. They're like big on Twitter. There are a bunch of people around the club that are big on Twitter as well. You should follow And Kittens, known as Little Miss Subtweet, on Twitter if you want to find out about the Cubs. And there's a whole bunch of people, but don't need to list all the Twitters.
Well, you mentioned there's a lot of people, tweeting about it, and there's the podcast that you mentioned, but this club hasn't been around very long. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the founding and kind of how it's been since it founded?
Yeah, so this club was founded in 2016. There's a Stegmans organization that's sort of like the minor league version of the club. And then there was a club known as the Internationals, and the Internationals go back to the 70s. Stegmans doesn't go back that far. But I'm not really sure what to compare it to. But basically, Minneapolis City was born out of those two clubs, and but Minneapolis City had their first and then only year in the American Premier League in 2016, and then in 2017 and 18 played in the NPLS North. And so they have another founding. So it's a soccer club that has a soccer shop, and they sell mostly their stuff, but also just it's sort of like a showcase for the kit makers, which you can't actually see. This was made by Impact before Stimulus started making the jerseys, but Stimulus is a Minneapolis company and they make the kits, and the kits are like fire emoji. Like the kits are good. They're not the MLS kits, which are garbage. But that's neither here nor there, really. And I put a link in the show notes to the goalkeeper jersey because, like, back in the day, goalkeeper jerseys were cool, and this one's a cool goalkeeper jersey. So you should check it out.
Okay. Well, I think you mentioned that they were the last year they were the NPSL North Champions, which this theme.
I think I said NPLS, but it's NPSL.
Yes.
And yeah. If I said it wrong, it's typed right.
Okay. Yes, it is typed right. And we've talked about on the show several times about definition of success. Well, that definitely, you put the word champion in front of something sounds like success. The way that the NPSL kind of tournament works after that, though, they lost in some round. Obviously, they were the North champions, and then they got a bye in the first round.
Okay,
so because they were champions, they got a bye in the first round, but then they did not win the second round. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct. Yes. So I guess I think for anybody who may not be aware, if you want to envision a 96 team league or something like that, and then
ridiculous.
So you have like regional playoffs, and then the regional winners go to the national playoffs, and so they didn't quite make it to the grand national stage. I guess for those of y'all who are trying to paint a picture for.
Yeah. So Duluth, who was in the conference, they actually did. They won the regional. They won the Midwest region. So what Duluth did, not to get too out of the way, is they beat Grand Rapids in the first round, and then they beat Minneapolis City, which they failed to do during the regular season. But it is hard to beat a team 3 times.
Yes.
I mean, you can switch some things out. And that game is pretty infamous for a nose ring situation. There was a player who had played for Minneapolis City that had played with a nose ring all season, and no official had ever made him take it out. And then referees at the beginning of the games do player checks, and they said everything was good to go. And then they got out on the field and like, you can't have that nose ring. And so they played down for like 18 minutes or something because they couldn't get the nose ring out. And
wow.
It was only after Duluth had scored their only goal in regulation that they got the player on. I mean, I think a lot of people in hindsight say, like, well, that substitution should have happened sooner, but hindsight's all, it's 2020. So, but yeah, if you saw the power rankings before the tournament began, I didn't understand why the Florida clubs were ranked below Minneapolis. I mean, like, if you know about the pedigree of the Florida teams, the Florida teams were going to crush it. Because like some of those Florida teams, they came from the old NASL, the old like Division II NASL, but that's still 2 divisions above the MPLS. Did that do it again? NPSL. I'm gonna get it right from now on. No, I'm not. But yeah, Duluth got absolutely crushed once they played. I think it was Miami, which I think City probably would have too. Just to be honest, like knowing what those clubs, their pedigree. I don't know that we're at that level just yet, but
yeah. Well, they have a new season to kind of show if they're going to be at that level. That starts, their first game is on May 11th. Do you have anything you want to mention maybe about like where they can view it, or?
I think that it's hard to say about this upcoming season. Player turnover is so high, not just for Minneapolis City, but in the NPSL. I got to write that up. In the North, at the very least, that who knows what teams are going to be like. Like Dakota Fusion made the playoffs in 2017, and then they lost some players and were a hot mess last year. One thing about the power rankings that I wanted to mention is Minneapolis City last year was the highest scoring team in the country. They scored a lot of goals. I mean, like 4+ was pretty regular occurrence. They scored a boatload of goals. And I think that's why the power rankings had them so high. But and they scored 4 against Duluth in one of the games. Duluth goalkeeper, national goalkeeper of the year last year. So they put 4 past him. So their offense was, again, like fire emoji. So yeah, I think that was part of it, but I think the competition level, is good, but you look at some of the other MPLS conferences and it's just better at this point. So, but that's the whole point of what Minneapolis City is trying to do for Minnesota-based players is make them better. People, so they sort of have the like Athletic Bilbao. It's Basque for them, but sort of that definition. It's a pretty loose definition of what you have to be Minnesotan. So like Brandon Bai, who plays for the New England Revolution, he did a summer internship somewhere here. I heard Kellogg's. I don't think Kellogg's is here though. It must have been General Mills, since General Mills is here. I don't know. Maybe Kellogg's has an office here I don't know about, but it was probably General Mills. But anyway, he had an internship here, and he contacted them and was like, hey, I would like to play for you guys and just stay in shape for the summer. And they were like, all right, you're here. You count. But one thing they don't do is they don't go looking for players, a good guy player that wants. They're not going to go look for housing for you if you're not from Minnesota. They're not going to bring you in. But if you're just happen to be here and you're amazeballs at soccer, then they might they might put you on the pitch. That's what they did for with Brandon By.
So first off, apparently Kellogg does have a branch or has a corporate campus in Bloomington.
Oh, okay. So that may have been it. Yeah, I was in Bloomington today, actually. You may have known that. So.
Second off, you've already mentioned Brandon By. He was one of the players on your list. Was there you want to run through any other players?
Yeah. So some of I'm not going to mention all of the PLA and the college player awards that people. I'm just going to talk about the NPSL leagues, and also Matt Elder. He's the longtime goalkeeper for City, and he's good at goalkeeping. But he hasn't won. He's been overshadowed regionally because National Goalkeeper of the Year is in the conference and in the region. But I think he definitely, like I said, he's good at soccer. But some other players, Will Kidd, all-time leading scorer for the club, Midwest Regional Team of the Year, 2018. I think he plays at Indiana. There's one guy that plays in Indiana, but it might not be him. It's Goose, but I don't know what Goose's real name is. I just hear Goose all the time. So I'm a terrible supporter for not knowing who Goose is, but it's not on the roster, so I don't know who he is. But then there's two Maxes on here. I'm going to have to click on this link because I don't remember. I think this is the guy with the S name, which I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. Scheidwartz. That's kind of maybe German. What's Stieg W?
J's not very common.
G T. God, I can't talk. Stiegwart.
Steigvot.
They don't pronounce it like that, but that might be the German way to pronounce it. But anyway,
that would be Steigvot.
Yeah, they definitely pronounce it with a W and not a V. But anyway, he was in the National 11 last year. The record of him playing versus him not playing is pretty ridiculous. For one thing, the only loss last year, the one which, I mean, they say undefeated because they were undefeated in the regular season, but the playoff loss to Duluth, he wasn't playing in that game. And they still only lost 2-1 to the eventual regional champion. So, but yeah, I think like a couple of the draws, they were 11-4. That's not possible. 11 and I don't know what they were in the regular season. They had some draws though, and a large percentage of the draws from when he didn't play too. The record was ridiculous. There was in the 2018 North Player of the Year or Team of the Year, the coach Adam Pribyl was on that team, and Maxwell Kent, the other Max, he was also on that team. They do this thing called a player showcase, which is unlike the team of the year, because the team of the year can be any sort of player and they don't actually play anybody, but there is a showcase where they bring young players from each region, like the top players from each region. And then scouts come from all over the world, really, and two Minneapolis City players got on that in 2018, Trey Benhart and Clinton Stockman Willis. And so in 2017, Martin Brown, who got a call up from the Liberian national team, he was a regional top 11 and a fourth team all in NPSL. And the NPSL did not do teams 2, 3, and 4 in 2018. They just did a one top national 11. So who knows who would have made that team if they had done that. There was no official 2017 NPSL North Team of the Year, but there was a blogger who made a list, and it seems like a pretty legit list. And this was from 2017, and then Martin Brown obviously was on that list, and Charlie Adams was on that list, and then Miles, and then on what they were calling their bench for their top team, they had Miles Stockman Willis and who was also in the 2018 showcase, and then Isaac Fried, which again, that's probably a name that I think that might be Goose. I don't know. I don't know who Goose is because I'm a terrible human being. I should look that up. I should look up who Goose is.
Well, you've yes, maybe you should do that. You've talked at nauseum about Duluth, and for obvious reasons. That is the main derby for Minneapolis City, as far as I can tell. Not just because of. There's probably a lot more that you could unpack in that.
There's a lot of off-field stuff with Duluth, but they won the league. It won the conference in 2017, and they were second in 2018. Yep. I mean, they're a legit power in the NPSL North. So you have to give that to them. The wins-loss record does not lie. So,
but is there any other? You have one listed here. I'm kind of curious to hear about it.
Yeah. So there's a team in St. Paul called VSLT. And it's Spanish. I should have looked that up too, but we just always say VSLT. So they do a lot of community work in the Latin community, and they still exist. The NPSL has a stipulation in their league rules that say that you can take a hiatus without, forfeiting your spot in the league. I don't know if that's 1 year at a time. I don't know if it's a 3 strikes and you're out. I don't know any of the details. I just know that they're not under penalty with the NPSL for taking this season off. They are still going to exist in the MASL, which is the Minnesota Adult Soccer League. And they've had those teams too, just like Minneapolis City has Stegmans that plays in the MASL. VSLT has done that. And then, one thing we didn't talk about at all was Open Cup, and Open Cup is sort of a bittersweet thing with Minneapolis City, but mostly bitter. But we don't need to go into that other than to say that 1 year in the competition, they went undefeated, but yet they didn't. Well, actually, now they're going to go undefeated this year too, because they weren't allowed to play. The USSF is garbage. We could do a whole show on that, but easily we could. Yeah, we definitely will. But so the Green Line Derby is with VSLT, and that the Green Line is the light rail line that goes in between St. Paul and Minneapolis. And one of the guys on the People's Pitch said they're the only club in the league that they act that the guy on the podcast actually likes and gets along with those people. So I think that's true. It's pretty friendly. I don't know. They're fun.
Interestingly, I looked to try to see what it was, and I can't pronounce Spanish that well, but it's Viejos son los trapos, which according to Google Translate says the clothes are old.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that.
I mean,
something. It's definitely something is something.
Yeah,
the sun is in there.
I don't know. But that interesting.
I've been holding this, and we were talking about doing something in the beginning, and I never did anything with it. I did have it back here on this thing, and the cat's knocked it off a couple times. This is the scarf. If you want to be, it's obviously in the box still, but if you want to become a member this year, you get this lovely scarf. And I am doing this thing that's probably controversial, and I am giving away my member scarf to a non-member in the hopes that they will enjoy this scarf this year. And then when they don't get their member scarf next year, because I'm not going to give them to them next year, they will actually become a member because they want the scarf. I don't know if that plan is going to work, but that's my plan. I've already got a scarf. Even in Minnesota, you can only wear one scarf at a time unless you're just nuts. No one wears more than one scarf. I've got plenty of scarves.
In North Carolina, nobody wears a scarf.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inside. I'm wearing a scarf. I mean, that's weird, but we're on a show. I can do that. So, but 2 scarves, that's a bridge too far, even for me.
Anywhere.
Yes. Just say no to 2 scarves.
All right. Well,
that's what they make the double scarves for. You want 2 scarves, but you just make it 1, so it's a split scarf.
There you go.
I mean, it's a thing.
You just flip it over.
Yeah. Well, no. I meant when teams play each other and what. Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, this is reversible scarf. I mean, all scarves are reversible, right? That's like, who makes a scarf that's not reversible?
I mean, I guess any
soccer scarves.
Yeah, any piece of clothing would be reversible, though. I mean,
technically, but yeah. I mean, but they're made to be reversed.
Okay.
It's when you buy like reversible pants, they don't mean like there's a reason they're called reversible pants. You don't just reverse your pants. Come on now.
If you want to. Okay.
That's true. I mean, it's possible.
So anyway, aside from our conversation on reversible pants and butchering the NPSL multiple times, I think we've covered a lot.
We have.
Is there anything else you could possibly think of?
I mean, I really could, but I know you have to go.
Yeah,
I should probably feed the cats or
I got
life other than talking about Minneapolis City.
Yes.
It might be hard to believe, but it's true. So.
Okay. Well, this has been episode 7 of the World Club of the Fortnight. And if you want to see our crazy shenanigans again, Doug, when is the next time they can see those?
It will be on March 2nd.
Okay.
Probably.
Yeah.
So that will probably be with Boca. Last time we have a guest and this is Boca Juniors, the Argentinian club. We have a guest lined up. But he also has a life doing things other than talking about Boca Juniors. So we'll have to figure it out. Getting the 3 of us together didn't work last time. And if it doesn't have it on March 2nd, we'll talk about some other club. We're on episode 7. We haven't run out of clubs yet.
Nope.
So
there's a lot more left.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until next time, this has been another episode of the World Club of the Fortnight. See ya.